Welcome to Real Estate 360, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate 360, Tom K. Wilson.
Thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate 360 program, your number one source for all of your real estate needs and education. We're broadcasting from the number one business radio station in San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom Wilson, your host for the Wednesday edition of Real Estate 360 that comes to you daily Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. along with my co-hosts, Joe Kuchera and Laurie Graymont. If you can't make the live show, you can catch your podcast on re360radio.com and my programs on tomwilsonproperties.com or on iTunes. So we hope you tune in each of those days to get different guests and different topics on real estate investing. Any questions that you have that you want us to follow up with or topics you'd like us to talk about, please go to tomwilsonproperties.com and let us know what they are. If we have a report that you might be interested in on how to select the best metros, and we'd be glad to send that to you if you put in a request. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up to on tomwilsonproperties.com that gives a nice 1-minute read on what the latest economic news is as it relates to real estate. So those are some of the resources that you can take advantage of. We have a great program for you today. We have special guest Bob Helms, who's in the studio with us. Bob Helms I've known for about 12 years. He has, I think I e-blasted to our database that Bob's been investing for 5 decades. I didn't add it up right. I think it's 7. Can you believe that? And he's still investing, and he's still mentoring and helping folks out. Bob is another one of those folks that started off in high tech. In fact, we both worked at some of the same companies back in the early Silicon Valley days, and he transitioned to real estate as well. Although he's a little smarter than I was, he transitioned a little quicker and sooner, and he's had a breadth of experience in investing in commercial and residential and multifam and retail. Been involved in education. He does mentoring. And his son, Robert Helms, has been running the longest radio real estate program, certainly in the country, probably in the world, and that's the Real Estate Guys. So I encourage you to tune in and listen to them. They actually record in the same studio on this same radio station, and they are downloaded in 161 countries. So that's another resource for you. You know, the focus of this program is to give you real estate education, and we're glad to share our partners, associates, and friends who are also sources that can be very helpful for you. So, Bob, welcome to the studio. Thanks so much for coming by today.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
So, Bob, you started off in high tech, and you, like many folks, started investing before you went full time. So what encouraged you to make your first investment, and what was that, and when was it?
You know, it's kind of a mystery, and that means it's a mystery to me, too. There was no logical reason. I bought my first investment property in 1957. That turned out that was a little place up in Boulder Creek, 2 little cabins on 1/3 of an acre. And I didn't really know what I was doing with it. In fact, the times I wasn't exactly ready to be a serious investor. By that I mean I had to hawk my wife's car to come up with my share of the down payment. Bought this with a fellow who was going to college with me at the time, lived in the other half of a duplex I was in. Eventually, that property served as the launching point.
But what tripped your trigger? What stimulated you to go make that first move, which was especially it was risky and scary enough in the 70s when I started, and I had folks that thought I was nuts. What what stimulated you to make that first purchase?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't exactly have a mentor. I was the first guy in my family to graduate from college. I didn't have anybody who had owned any income property in the past. People owned their houses. That seemed like the thing to do. I worked when I was in high school for an engineering company, a surveying company. I was fortunate enough to get a job and met a couple of guys there who were investors on the field crew I worked with. They weren't really available, or they might have been if I had worked to help me start this, but I think that was maybe an inkling of the idea to do it. When we bought that first little place up in Boulder Creek, it was kind of a weekend hideaway. And that lasted for a couple of 3 years while I was a college student. I'm going to college on the GI Bill at San Jose State University. My wife works in a bookstore. Our income is about $500 a month. To be honest, I graduated in 1960. My first engineering job paid $550 a month, so we weren't doing too terribly, but we didn't have a big pile of cash. Most importantly, we didn't have a plan. So when I say we stumbled onto it, I mean it just was not a well-thought-out long-term plan. The plan developed after I got started, as I got into it. And I think a lot of us do that. In fact, I think it's very common for the average investor to buy the house across the street, down the block, somewhere near home. That's what most of us do. And eventually, if that solves the problem for you or gets you started, that works. What eventually happens for a lot of us, of course, is like you and I, Tom, we branch out. We start going to different areas. And what we're looking for is better opportunities. But you have to have somehow decided, by now, this is what I want to do. I hope I'm good at this, and I hope I get a lot better at this as I go along. But so as you start, if you've got a plan, congratulations. If you don't have one, you need to get one.
It's fascinating what stimulates us and motivates us, isn't it? I remember I landed as a young engineer in '69, and my first house that I rented was with a landlord who lived next door, and he owned half the street. I thought that was the craziest darn thing I'd ever heard of, but it planted those seeds that finally took off. So it doesn't make any difference where you get those seeds planted and where you get your education. You just need to do it, don't you? So you were in high tech until about 1980 or something when you started the brokerage firm. So what made you decide to go from the high tech world into full-time real estate business?
Well, I had a neighbor a couple doors down the street who opened a real estate office, wanted me to come to work for her, and I kept saying, I can't do that. I don't know anything about it. By now, I had acquired some properties, so that's why she breached that subject with me. But I wasn't ready to be a realtor, whatever they were, or so it seemed. However, I was at a stage in my electronics career where I was a regional manager for a company in Southern California, calling on the Lockheeds of the world up here, and I really had about a 3-day-a-week job. So I began to think maybe I could do this a little bit. I could do this part-time. By the way, most brokerages don't encourage part-time realtors. They want people who will come, get to work, learn the game, perform. This one did, however. And so I thought, I've got about 4 days a week left. I'll try it. Well, that lasted for 2 years before the electronics job dried up, at which point I had declared I was a realtor. I had learned that I liked it, thought I could make a living doing it, so I didn't bother to look for another electronics job.
Life circumstances helped you make the decision. Huh?
Yes, exactly.
Funny how that happens, isn't it? So how long were you in the brokerage business?
Well, I'm still in the brokerage business, Tom. I'm a licensed California broker. I've had my license in California a little over 33 years.
But you brought Robert in with you, and you guys were cranking out some volume there for quite a few years, weren't you?
We were. That was a great thing. It was by the time Robert was ready to go to work, he also attended San Jose State University. He was a business major with a radio TV minor or background, and he fully intended to go into that business. In fact, he had a job at a radio station. But during those days, my brother and I had bought an apartment building, a 50-unit apartment building, a couple blocks from San Jose State that Robert had unwittingly become the manager of. And so we had him a little prepared. He wasn't liking it. It wasn't a great incentive for him. But the real truth is that I needed Robert to help me. I'm By this time, I'm working in a small brokerage with a partner, and we're about to take on sales for a developer in Cupertino. This is a time when the Cupertino marketplace is just ripping. It's just roaring along. So the short of it is, Tom, I paid Robert more than the radio station to come sit on open houses. He had some inclination, he had some ideas about it, but he wasn't very excited about it. But that changed pretty quickly as he absorbed it, as he liked it, as he decided he had style for it. And when Robert came to work for my partner and I, the partner ended up leaving. Robert and I inherited. The partner moved out of the state because of family matters. So Robert and I inherited this little company. And it was fairly hard to work in a small company in those days. We were invited to come and join a much bigger company, and decided that we had some skills. And when we joined the larger company is when Robert and I really focused on being we were a father and son team selling residential real estate, but at least a third of our business was income property because that's what we had done. By this time, we owned about 9 or 10 rental properties. We were seriously into the rental game, and we understood that marketplace. And I just have to tell you, very few agents do. So it became a focal point for us and became a great business opportunity for us.
The number of agents who really have a lot and focus on the investment side of the business is shockingly small, isn't it?
It's really small. It's less than 5% of realtors in California who will ever do more than one income property transaction in their entire career.
Isn't that amazing? And they're in the best position to find opportunities, and most of them don't take advantage of it. So I find that looking for and connecting with someone to be a part of our team who's very experienced in investment property as a broker or agent is very hard to find.
Your chances are 1 in 20.
And the average person that wants to go buy something is just kind of looks up the average local agent and says, I want to buy investment property, and they say sure, and they have usually the odds are they have virtually no experience. They'll say yes because they sold a duplex 2 years ago to somebody, but that's about it. So that's more difficult. We're talking here today with Bob Helms, who's a 7-decade real estate investor and another high-tech convertee over to the real estate business, and he's sharing his experiences with us. And we're very pleased to have him here in the studio. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes here with some more with Bob Helms. This is Tom Wilson, RE360, 1220 AM KDOW.
For more information on today's program, visit RE360radio.com. That's RE360radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW traffic.
And we're brought to you this time by Garmin Nimitz Freeway. Some slowing there leading up to this problem. It's a stall right lane at 98th Avenue. It's backing up near the Coliseum. Northbound, you will encounter slowing out of Fremont around Dakota up into Hayward. And westbound 24, Camino Pablo brake lights into the Caldecott Tunnel. Eastbound really hasn't assembled yet. We see delays in Berkeley, both directions of 80 around University Avenue. Eastbound hasn't really filled in quite yet either. San Francisco, we mentioned last time around, jamming there at the 280 split. Heading onto the lower deck thanks to an earlier crash on the eastbound Skyway past 1st Street. Hate traffic? Don't hate, drive happy. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic and avoid traffic and construction delays with updates as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin, the most trusted name in GPS. And for more traffic, log on to sigalert.com.
Attention business owners and decision makers. If you've ever asked yourself the question, could radio work for my business? The answer is yes. Hi, my name is Brian Recton, Director of Sales for KDOW. If you're interested in reaching a massive Bay Area audience, then you need to give me a call. Radio does work, and radio can work for you. Our audience is a great mix of business owners, managers, and B2B decision makers and influencers. They're highly educated and financially stable. They are fiercely loyal and pay very close attention to advertiser messages heard on KDOW. Let me tell you more and show you how we can build an effective ad campaign to introduce your products and services to our listeners. Call me today at 510-713-1100. That's 510-713-1100. Or send an email to advertise@kdow.biz. That's advertise@kdow.biz.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life counselor from Trinity Debt Management.
Every day we help people with all kinds of debt or money-related issues. Some have lost their jobs, are in the process of a divorce, have health problems, or maxed out their credit cards. But no matter what kind of situation they may be facing, we're here for them.
If you're in debt for any reason and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-936-5496 and talk with a certified counselor.
When people call Trinity, they're often worried and embarrassed. But then they realize what matters most is how we face those challenges.
Trinity has a proven plan to help you make ends meet, save thousands in interest, and become debt-free for keeps.
Anyone can fall behind in their bills. They just have to take that first step and start heading in the right direction. And with our help, they will catch up.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-936-5496. That's 1-800-936-5496. 1-800-936-5496. Or visit mydebthasmedown.com.
Isn't it the worst feeling? You're going along in your day and suddenly your debt comes to mind, and that sudden rush of anxiety sweeps over you. And, of course, every new bill adds more weight to the burden, and who wants to answer the phone for more bad news? Listen, instead of losing sleep over your debt, lose the debt. Nonprofit Trinity Debt Management will help you do that starting tomorrow. Without new loans, without harm to your credit rating, Trinity will make all the arrangements to get your credit card companies to reduce your interest rates as much as 60%. Your Trinity counselor will get spiraling late and over-the-limit fees eliminated. The collection calls will stop, the bills won't be a burden, and your credit rating will actually improve significantly. So don't lose sleep over debt. Lose your debt by calling Trinity Debt Management at 800-936-5348. 800-936-5348. Be debt-free for keeps. Call Trinity at 800-936-5348.
Welcome back to Real Estate 360, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. Again, your host for today's edition of RE360 Radio, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back to RE360 with our special guest Bob Helms today, a 7-decade investor who's famously known as the Godfather of Real Estate. He's been a good friend for a long time and lots of experience to take advantage of. A little bit later in the program, we're going to welcome call-ins and get ready with your questions and call in to 1-800-516-1220. 1-800-516-1220. And another couple segments here, and we'll take your calls. So we're talking to Bob about his experiences and how it developed from something small to something much more. He was a real estate broker for many years after he was in high tech. He was an engineer and in the high-tech industry, and it seems fairly common for analytical folks to figure out that figuring numbers with real estate can yield some good results. So, Bob, what kind of led you to expand your real estate investments? You were mentioning that unlike many brokerage firms, you and your son Robert, who's the originator and co-host of the Real Estate Guys radio program, that you were doing a lot of deals for investors, not just owner-occupants. Was that part of what got you going to do more for your own personal portfolio?
Well, it was. The personal investment started well, continued. One of the early ideas, a fortunate idea that was by accident, was that I began to realize I could use some help doing this. One, if you wait until you save up enough down payment for the next one, it may be a long time coming. So no reason to do that if you know the formula and can figure out how to make it work. So the 50-unit apartment building I talked about, my brother and I bought together. We actually bought several properties together. I also had some other investors that I came together with. And what I learned with so many investors and what we see today is that there are people who are anxious, willing, and able. They have money. What they need is somebody to guide them because they really don't have the time to do the research. So if you, as an investor, are willing to put together deals, put together properties, if you will, put together syndications to raise the money to do projects, you're able to bring value to the table and make that work for everybody.
Many people have some attribute which can contribute, don't they? And but you need to put together a team and complementary skills and assets to make it work. And you don't have to do it all yourself. You can get some help and partner and leverage and get mentoring help and folks that are experts in various areas and put all that together and kind of put together your own syndication, if you will, but partnership to leverage it and make things go faster.
Yes, you can. And when you talk about teams, Tom, and I know we're going to visit that topic simply because it's so urgent that you surround yourself with people who can contribute, people who have the experience. We like to hire team members who, in fact, are investors whenever we can. That simply gives us the ability to have a shortcut because these people already understand the way the game plays. When Robert and I began to concentrate on income producing properties or investment properties, if you will, this was before we separated off into a little company. What happened is that we found that most agents, just as we discussed earlier, don't really understand this. In fact, most agents don't own any investment property. Some don't own their own property, and it's not because they don't have the ability or aren't acquainted. It's just not in their thinking. It's not in their consciousness. So that has led me to make a lot of changes in terms of what I'm doing today. But the point is this simply, it's such a great opportunity. You know, real estate is a multifaceted game where you can play in any part of it that you like. You can play with different property types. You can play on a lot of levels. And so what you've got to figure out is, how do I get educated enough to pick the one that's going to work best for me? Okay,
we have Bob Helms in the studio with us today, a very experienced investor who's sharing his experiences and lessons learned for many years, so much so he's famously known as the Godfather of Real Estate. We have going to come back and we're going to talk about different things that he's working on today, which includes some offshore investing and developing, mentoring program, and so forth, and see if we can get some specifics on things that Bob has learned over the years. So this is Tom Wilson on KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW traffic.
We're brought to you by Garmin. Look for delays in Mountain View. Both directions of 101. Northbound are right around Rangsdorf up towards Embarcadero up into Palo Alto. Southbound Ellis towards Fair Oaks. And then more slowing in the usual spots there further south around the Lawrence Expressway heading towards Oakland Road. Nothing solid yet. Look for some slow traffic as well as you make your way along 880. A little bit of a jam up there rolling through the 101 interchange, and that'll carry you slow down towards North First, but nothing really solid developing there yet. San Francisco's a tough go North 101 early on today from Silver Avenue out to the lower deck. Hate traffic, don't hate, drive happy. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic and avoid traffic and construction with updates as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com.
Margaret Jackson speaking on success.
Success is not by chance. It is purposed and planned.
Margaret Jackson is the premier small business problem solver. Her company, Business on the Edge, is taking registrations for the next business and professional training class. You can attend a series of classes that run from now through October.
In these classes, you will gain valuable insight that can save you hundreds and potentially thousands of dollars. The training you receive will give you the edge you need to be successful in today's marketplace.
Register now for the August 5th event titled On the Edge Network Pitch. You'll have an opportunity to pitch your business for 90 seconds. No 30-second elevator speech. It's free and a great networking opportunity.
Go to businessontheedge.biz and sign up now. That's businessontheedge.biz. Let Margaret Jackson give you the business strategies you need to succeed.
Go to businessontheedge.biz and sign up now.
Quite often we find ourselves thinking we should have done things sooner.
I love that we took this vacation.
I know. We should have done this a long time ago.
Sooner is just better than later. And now you don't have to wait till later to own the car of your dreams, thanks to a surprisingly affordable certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz. Each of our certified pre-owned vehicles undergoes an exhaustive process of analysis, inspection, and reconditioning until it meets the uncompromising standards of a Mercedes-Benz. Plus, every one is available with an optional extended limited warranty for up to 7 years or 135,000 total vehicle miles. And now, with 3 months of Sirius XM satellite radio. And your certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz is available only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer. Visit today for exceptional financing.
Strategies and Solutions with America's Retirement Authority, Ray Lucia CFP.
With hundreds of thousands of homes in foreclosure or on short sale lists, this may be a good time to score a sweet deal on a home, but be aware that deeply discounted homes can come with some very expensive problems. Be particularly diligent about focusing on physical problems with the property. Disclosures often aren't as rigorous as in a traditional sale. Sometimes people being foreclosed upon take out their spite by defacing or destroying parts of the home. Or if the home was vacant, the house may have suffered from squatters, mold, termites, thieves, or other problems. Be sure to participate in the home inspection. Talk to the neighbors, too. They may know something the inspector doesn't know. Take off the rose-colored glasses, see yourself as an investor, and don't fall hard for a bad home. Figure out how much more money you'll need to pour into the property to make it truly habitable and attractive.
For more retirement strategies and solutions, listen to Ray every weekday or go to rayonthemoney.com.
Welcome back to Real Estate 360, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. Again, your host for today's edition of RE360 Radio, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back. We have a great program today. We're enjoying talking with Bob Helms, a 7-decade investor who's sharing his experiences and things that he's learned. So much experience, he's known as the Godfather of Real Estate, famously by all of his friends. Next segment, we're going to take some call-ins, and that'll be 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220. Feel free to call in and ask Bob. Think of a really tough question for him, something to really dig down some of his experiences. Bob, let's go hit a few lessons learned. I'm sure your story is fascinating. I'm sure folks want to have a takeaway as well. What's your thought about young investors, new investors investing in residential versus commercial property? What's your advice to them?
I think for the average beginner, residential property is much easier. Not that the model's a lot simpler. It isn't. Neither one is very complex, though. Generally, what we're talking about, residential properties, they tend to be less expensive, not necessarily in this neighborhood, but in general compared to most commercial properties. They're simple. There are trade-offs there. And one trade-off I'll give you is this. Depending on where you are with residential income property, the regulations will be simpler with commercial property. What am I getting at? I'm getting at the fact that with residential property, we're concerned there are lots of housing rights for people who are going to be your tenants, and there are a lot of rules that have to be complied with. Not so in the commercial arena, where people are on their own. Not everybody has to have a place to do business, but everybody has to have a place to live, and the regulations kind of go hand in hand with that.
And the lender market's totally different, isn't it? The one thing that I can think of that's tough for people who are starting out is in this current market, and we always have to talk about the current times, if you aren't already in the commercial arena, it's pretty tough to get a loan now if you're not going to do cash. But otherwise, yes, some of the regulations are less, aren't they?
Yeah, so probably a little harder to start there, plus absolute dollars are generally higher, so that just makes it a little, maybe a little more out of reach for investors. You know, the key to whatever and wherever you're going, the most important thing you can do is worry about getting your education. I can tell you this, I've seen an awful lot of investors who get very excited to run out, jump into the fray. I call them unguided missiles because they haven't done their homework, and they're most likely to crash and burn. So whatever you do, you need to get an initial education, and it doesn't stop there. It continues because you'll continue. The arenas will get bigger. They will get more complex. Things will change. Education's a lifetime game.
And everybody has failures. Every successful person especially has had failures, because unless you push yourself a little bit to the limit to get that success, that's when you're less likely to have failures, but then you probably won't succeed a whole lot either. But it's certainly something you need to be aware of and know that it'll probably happen. Quick moment before our break here, long-term holds versus flipping versus speculation. What's your thought about that?
Well, all of those things are viable places today. There's so many ways to invest. I'm personally a long-term buy and hold investor. Have I ever done a flip? Oh, absolutely. I don't have the skills at that you do. I've never done it to the extent that you have, but I've certainly done it, and it's viable, and there are a lot of people doing that today, particularly with some of the distressed properties that are on the marketplace. As far as speculation, here we get into definitions. Here's the one thing we have, risk and reward, and we have to consider that every time. So let's talk about that a little more, perhaps in the next segment.
Okay, all right. Again, if you have a question for Bob, call in on the next segment at 1-800-516-1220. This is Tom Wilson on KDOW 1220 AM, the Real Estate Business Network. Glad to have you with us today, where we're getting good advice from Bob Helms, the Godfather of Real Estate. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW traffic.
Hey, we're brought to you this time by Garmin. Look for a snag heading into Berkeley, West 80 at Ashby. An accident there, kicking off to the shoulder, but it's backed up all the way towards Gilman. Eastbound, sluggish through that same stretch out of the Berkeley curve and out past University Avenue. 24 delays on both sides at the Caldecott. Eastbound right at the entrance, sluggish through the bores. Westbound, you'll find a jam up there right around Camino Pablo on the Orinda side, headed for Oakland. Still a stall, South 880 at 98th Avenue. That may still be in the right lane. Traffic there is jammed up, and the backup has grown beyond Fruitvale Avenue. Hate traffic? Don't hate. Drive happy. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic, and avoid traffic and construction delays with updates as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin, the most trusted name in GPS. And for more traffic, it's sigalerts.com.
Hey folks, breaking news. The U.S. Mint has been hit by another silver shortage. In December, the Mint ran out of silver American Eagles. Then after record sales on January 15th, it ran out again? Last time the Mint ran out, the silver price jumped from $34 an ounce to $49, up 40%. Signs are everywhere. Reports tell us a silver shortage has also struck Apple, causing production delays of the new iMac. It's time to own silver. Call 1-800-260-4461 to take advantage of Lear Capital's Silver Investor Special. For a limited time, receive up to a $250 cash bonus on qualifying purchases. Don't wait. Call now and also receive Lear's latest booklet, Silver, Today's Best Kept Secret. See why the silver price could jump 40%. And don't forget, you can own silver in an IRA to help manage risk and build wealth. Call now, 1-800-260-4461. The report is free, but the $250 offer is limited. Call 1-800-260-4461. That's 800-260-4461.
I have a question in regards to, it's a variable annuity with a guaranteed minimum withdrawal benefit.
Hey, Steve, I called you regarding an insurance question. What do you think will be best for her to get?
I'm young enough to do an aggressive portfolio. Now, when I look up aggressive, do some research, some people say, oh, well, you need 80% stocks, 20% bonds.
For answers to the tough questions, listen to Invest Talk, weekdays 4 to 5 on 1220 Business Radio.
Welcome back to Real Estate 360, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. Again, your host for today's edition of RE360 Radio, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back. We're enjoying a great session here with Bob Helms, the godfather of real estate with 7 decades of experience, another techie gone real estate investor and mentor and so forth. So we're so glad to have him. Before we take calls at 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220, Bob, tell me what your thoughts about risk assessment and individual tolerance. How does someone decide how much risk to take? That's a tough one for a lot of people. I know, for example, folks who've spent $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 on education, which we certainly promote getting some education, and they've never bought a property because they're afraid to take that step. You got any thoughts?
Well, we talk about the paralysis of analysis, and for certain people, it's really difficult to take that step. No matter, in other words, they're going to keep studying and studying and studying till they learn everything. They'll be a very interesting conversationalist, but they won't have made a nickel. So you've got to take a step somewhere. You've got to decide. You've got to figure out what your philosophy is, where you want to be, what you want real estate to do for you, and what segment's comfortable. So risk-reward analysis is one of the interesting things we look at. For example, if we look at a project that's far out, we haven't broken ground yet, that we're investing in doing a development that's going to be long-term, the rewards may be a lot higher, but they're going to be a lot longer coming, and there's going to be a lot more risk associated with it. Whereas if I buy the finished product after that development's done, it may still be an excellent investment. I may still have a lot of opportunity, but I will have a much different risk-reward picture.
Indeed. Well, let's get some questions going for you. We have in the studio with us today a new investor. His name is Jack. Jack, do you have a question for Bob?
Hey, Tom. It's good to see you here. I listen to your show all the time, and thanks for inviting me to ask a question. And Bob, I had a question for you. How do you go about finding the best area to invest in?
That's too good a question, Jack. That's a really good question, because what happens so often is that people, again, I suggested don't do their homework. That doesn't mean they don't do any homework. But figuring out where you're going to invest is such a key to this. So you need to learn, how do we determine what is a marketplace that has stability and staying power? In other words, if I'm going to be in the rental business, I'm going to buy a property that I'm going to rent out to a tenant. What I'm looking for are several things, but the most important one is stability. I want the tenant to stay there a long time, to be able to afford it. Hopefully, I will have purchased in a place and under the right set of conditions where I can depend on getting adequate cash flow to pay my mortgage, presuming I have one, and to make this work, to make it be a viable entity as we go along. So that suggests a lot of things. By the way, no matter where I pick it, what I need to do is realize it's a business, not a hobby. That tenant is my client. I need to take care of that tenant. I need him to be happy. And most importantly, I need him to pay the rent on time. All those things need to go together to make it a successful investment. So in terms of how do you look, Jack, where do you look? There's a lot of data available, but I would caution you about where you get it. First of all, there's tons of data available on the internet, period. It's not all biblical. You're going to have to weed through and figure out what makes sense. But there are an awful lot of reports that can help you. If you can tell, for example, where the most jobs are being created in the country, what the stability of rent rates look like. In other words, what we want is to find an area that will sustain itself, that will have plenty of employment, will have the kind of people living and working there who will be my tenants if I'm going to be the landlord.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I think we have a caller. Julie, are you on?
I am on. Hi.
Hi there.
Tom, it's been great to be able to get on the show. I've been listening to you for quite a while, and I do just have a couple questions for both, probably for Bob and for yourself. Bob, how long do you think that this rental market is going to stay strong, and also how long do you think the rental properties will be a good investment?
Great question. Well, a moment ago, you may remember, Julie, I said I'm a long-term buy and hold investor. What does that mean? That means that normally I'm expecting markets to be stable enough and permanent enough in places I invest that I don't have to suddenly worry about not having any income and not being able to hang on to the property. So what I'm really saying is that that's the way I try to put properties together. That means I pay attention to how much leverage I use, how much down payment it took, so that I could comfortably handle the property, pay the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, expenses, and still have some margin. Now, what we can't tell very well is what the economy is going to look like long term. We can make some guesses, but if you had asked me 10 years ago what was going to happen in 2008, I probably wouldn't have told you that we'd have the significant disaster that we did. And that wasn't a real estate disaster per se. It became that. It was really a financial problem that was prevalent across the country. So if you're asking, and you did ask me how long I thought this market would hold, you have to look at what the factors are that create this market. Right now, rentals are very strong in most parts of the country. By the way, there's data available for virtually every sector and section. You can find out what's going on with them. It's hard for me to give you an answer that says it's good for 2 years, it's good for 4 years. I'm not absolutely certain about that, but here's what I know. The change doesn't happen between Friday night and Monday morning. It's slow enough that you must pay attention. This will be concerning the value of the property and concerning what the rental market looks like. There's data available. It's important, if you're going to be the landlord, that you track it so you can anticipate what's coming.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Julie, for your question.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have another question? Do we have another caller in there? Please, let's have the next caller.
Hello, hi.
Hello. Do you have a question for Bob?
I do, and I just wanted to say hello, Tom and Bob. I really do enjoy the show. I listen almost every week. And my question is for Bob. How do you go about selecting a good team to find good properties for you?
That is a great question. First of all, you have to realize that you need a team. No matter where you're buying, whether you're buying right in your own hometown, but even more so if you're buying across the country, you have to rely and depend upon people who are there and on the scene. Now, what is a team comprised of? If I'm buying residential property, I'm going to need to have at least the following people. I'm going to have a real estate broker that I know, like, and trust. I'm going to need a CPA. It might not be at the location. That might be my CPA here locally, but I need one. I'm going to need an attorney in all likelihood. I need somebody who is expert in the documentation, and I need to know how the transactions go together. Might just throw this at you. If you do a transaction to buy and sell a property, we tend to think there are 4 people involved, the buyer, the seller, and their 2 agents. Actually, every transaction has about 20 people serially involved, all of whose skills you need. So what I'm looking at when I talk about my team, these are the people that I work with regularly, that I work with repeatedly. My first wish, if I could have it this way, I would have every team member be an investor. I would have my CPA be an investor because he internalizes and knows a lot more about it than just doing the paperwork.
In fact, all the team members, right?
Yes.
Very, very good to have them all a lot of experience in exactly what you're trying to do, in this case, investing. I think that's very important. So thank you very much for your call. Appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
We are, today we have in our studio Bob Helms, and he's the famously known as the Godfather of Real Estate because he has 7 decades of investing experience. So good to have him with us and to be able to answer our callers' questions and tell us about things that he's learned over the time. So when you come back, we'll have a couple wrap-up things. We'll find out how you can get some more information and maybe some mentoring help from Bob. So this is Tom Wilson, Real Estate 360, KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW traffic.
Hey, we're brought to you by Garmin. We'll head out to the Nimitz Freeway. Traffic has been slow there on South 880 thanks to an earlier stall now cleared, but the brake lights around 5th Embarcadero, it stays slow in that southbound direction. Make that 16th Avenue all the way down towards 98th. Beyond that, a good ride into San Leandro. Some more brake lights, though, from A down to Tennyson and northbound Union City, Fremont, right about Dakota, before Alvarado, Niles, right in there. You'll find the slow stuff, and that stays stop and go out through Hayward and through that Highway 92 interchange. So in Old Grade, we do see some slow traffic there as well, building around Scott Creek, heading up the hill. Hate traffic? Don't hate. Drive happy. Get a Garmin Nuvi with subscription-free HD digital traffic and avoid traffic and construction delays with updates as often as every 30 seconds. Drive with Garmin. And for more traffic, log on to sigalert.com.
Brother versus Brother is coming to HGTV.
We're mentoring 2 teams of home improvement experts. Team Jonathan! Every week, each team will renovate a different property.
Everything is brown, 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 and more brown.
We're looking for that one person who is the best at increasing the property value.
Wow, this is a dramatic change.
Everything and anything you would possibly want to see in Property Brothers times 10.
Brother versus Brother premieres Sunday night at 10, 9 Central on HGTV.
Hi, this is tax and estate planning attorney Connie Yee, host of Wealth, Preservation, and You. Each Saturday at 12 noon, we will explore the many ways to plan for wealth protection, estate planning, how to prepare your legacy for future generations, and how to avoid pitfalls when it comes to your estate. Our program will help you to plan today for a secure tomorrow. Join me, Wealth, Preservation, and You, Saturday at 12 noon here on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to Real Estate 360, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. Again, your host for today's edition of RE360 Radio, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back. We're enjoying our program with Bob Helms, the Godfather of Real Estate with 7 decades of experience. I'm glad you're with us today. We have just a little bit more time, and Bob, I want to ask you a little bit about, I guess, a couple of things. One, don't you mention to the folks about the Summit at Sea, something that I even though I'm a latecomer to it, I'm a great fan and wouldn't miss it for anything.
The Summit at Sea is a great event put on by the real estate guys every year. Now, I'm part of the faculty, so I guess I can say I'm a great part of the faculty.
You certainly are.
What's important is that the faculty is top-notch, and it's called a summit because the idea of this seminar, and this is for real estate investors, it's a cruise. We start at a hotel. We start with lessons on a hotel. We pick a voyage that has days at sea so that instead of laying up on the deck, you're down there in the classroom. So
This is no. If you have an image of the old boondoggle cruises, this ain't it. I'm telling you, it'd run you ragged from 8 in the morning till midnight.
This is hard work, but you get some amazing, amazing people who are there. We get top-notch faculty guys like Ken McElroy, and we get Tom Wheelwright, and we get
Robert Kiyosaki and Peter Schiff.
Yes, just amazing, well-known names. And here's what's beautiful about it. You get to have dinner with them. They're approachable. You get to talk to them. You get to see those guys every day. It's just such a powerful environment. Great fun.
I think it's one of the most valuable education events I've ever been to. And Bob, you're doing these days a little mentoring program for folks, right?
I am.
Tell us briefly about that and let folks know how they can reach you if they're interested in that.
I have done some coaching for quite a while, but I'm really formalizing that. There are 2 segments I'm aiming at. I've had a lot of fun helping investors and a lot of success doing that. So I'm trying to coach or mentor investors any place in any kind of real estate. Now, I'm not saying I know everything there is to know about real estate. If I don't know what to do, we'll figure out what you need to do. But the whole point is people need a hand.
How can they contact you?
That. I can be reached. My phone number is 408-690-5512, or you can reach me at bob@realestateguysradio.com.
And boy, that's a great resource. And so don't hesitate to call on Bob. Don't hesitate to call on me, Tom Wilson. You can find me at tomwilsonproperties.com. You can also sign up for a newsletter that gives you a weekly economics summary as it applies to real estate, a nice 1-minute read by an economist who boils everything down. If you have questions that you'd like me to answer, or Bob, you can send that through our website as well. And also, I have a report which is called How to Select the Best Metropolitan Areas to Invest In, and that can expand on what we've been talking about some. So those are some resources that you can take advantage of. And come back next week, so we have a program continuing with Bob Helms. We both just got back from a conference called Freedom Fest, where there was a lot of real estate investors and a lot of good information. We're going to be talking about that and other experiences and thoughts from Bob. So tune in next week indeed to cover that one, and we'd love to have you back again. So Bob, thank you so much for being with us this program. It's been a real treat. We look forward to all of you being back on the next program on KDOW 1220 AM. The Wall Street Business Network, and Real Estate 360. So I hope you tune in each day to hear our various topics and our various guests that we have on, and we look forward to having you next week. Thank you again, Bob, for being with us.
My pleasure. Great fun. Looking forward to it, Tom.
You've been listening to Real Estate 360 on AM 1220 KDOW. For more information on today's program, visit re360radio.com. That's re360radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW.